What's going on, everyone? Today we're going to be lowering the Malibu. It's going to be an interesting video. I picked up some used coil springs that have around 30,000 miles on them from a fellow YouTuber, Auto Autopsy. He does SAABs and he just bought a new Audi. Pretty cool. Got these coil springs. They're lowering, I think 1.5 or 1.3 inch lowering springs for a SAAB, but they work on the Malibu since it's the same platform and all that. He also chucked in his old Map-tuned coilovers from his Turbo X, and they're in really rough shape, but we might be able to get the front ones to work just temporarily because they're blown. The seals are blown out at the top. But I think it'd be pretty cool just to hook them up and see how it handles, how it looks. So let's get started. Here's the box of coilovers, and there's the lowering springs. Front and rear. These are front. Rear under here. The rears are really messed up. I don't even know if those can even be used, but the fronts are fine. A little rusty. The car that it came off of was from the Rust Belt, so that's why. So here is the rear shock. This is our predicaments. The one rear shock bolt got snapped off. So I'm just gonna try and get it out and see if there's threads lower down. Maybe we can catch onto, not sure. But don't mind the stack of dirty cloths to wash my car or whatever. Anyways, this was also stuck on there. So I put some sprays and stuff on it. Just let it sit overnight, and then I took the impact and it came right off. Now this is frozen down here onto this. I'm not sure what this mount is like. Maybe it's a metal sleeve all the way down and it's just like welded itself in there. So I already tried banging on it with a hammer, stuff like that. Nothing's worked so far. I even took the vice grips and grabbed onto the shock down here and twisted and just the rubber moves. So plan B, the air hammer, and put this on it. We're just gonna hammer that thing and see if it'll crack the rust welds and drop out. Okay, let's see if it does anything. If I can hold it in place. Huh. That's weird. This is where we're at so far. Got the Sawzall out. I bent this nut all out of shape, so that's gonna be really fun. Cut this off now. I just need to like cut a slit right here so we can maybe get access to the actual rod in there. Then maybe we can pry it out. But so far, this thing is just completely rusted in place. Demonstration to show you how the shock mount works. See all the rubber in there? Tilting side to side, dampening it. Well, you see here, there's the rod, and water just got in the mount and completely rusted it in there. Okay, we're making headway here. This now moves separate from the rest. Oh, just look at all that oxidation. Yeah, these mounts definitely not meant for the rusty states. That's terrible. Oh, that's what's left of the SAAB mount. Here's the shock. Oh geez, that's terrible. At this point, I had just taken it apart to see the actual damage and what the rust had actually done to these shocks and the mounts. So this is the one that I got completely apart. Isn't that crazy? It's completely rusted and the threads are jacked and just not good all over. There's also supposed to be an adjustment knob on the top that is completely broken off. And here's the other side that actually had gone snapped off. You can see the adjustment rod sticking up right there. That's supposed to have a knob on it and probably about 3 more inches of threads. Here's the coilovers. I guess now we can start. See if we can put these in. This is missing. the nut, which sucks. There's also 2 screws missing, 1 on each, so I'm gonna have to try and find those somewhere. And they leak profusely, but throw them on anyways and see what it looks like. Okay, here's the height before. We'll take some measurements, so there's more of an exact, but I can basically fit a fist right there. In the rear, front, I can fit a fist there. So let's change that. I'm going to start by taking off the front wheel. I could cheat by having it jacked up like that and say 1.5 fists, but no. There's the old coil, or the old strut right there. Yeah, I forgot to measure first. I need to do that. All right, so from the ground to the fender, it's about 27.5, just over inches for the rear. Now for the front, just under 28 inches. So let's see what it is after the coilovers. And obviously we'll probably have to adjust the height because I'm sure they're all the way at the lowest, but we'll go from there. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is take out these 2 bolts here, and I marked them in case of alignment purposes. And there's a connector here. Well, all of this comes off with the bracket. There's a bracket on here. There's a bracket right here for the brake line, and then sway bar and link, and then the 3 bolts at the top. Comes right out. All right, so this is an 18 millimeter. I did put some WD-40 on here. The other one's way down here. These ones are pretty tight. There's that one. Now this bracket comes off, and there's some sort of weird looking one over here. It's probably a 10 millimeter. Yep. This takes off the brake caliper line, if it'll come off. There we go. I should probably put the jack underneath this so it doesn't fall whenever I take these bolts out here. So here's what we're working with. These were the 2 nuts I took off. This was the bracket that goes on there. This is where the brake caliper line goes, and we need to knock these out, and then this will be free. Oh, I almost forgot about sway bar and link. I just replaced these 2. Okay, I got this disconnected, and these pretty much hammered out. I'll have to try and take them out all the way. There's that one. Okay, I'll come back when that's out. Okay, I got both out. Now let's lower this. Might have to pry on that a little. Okay, now let's go to the top and unscrew those. Okay, this is what we have to undo right here. And see it kind of sag there. Now we just have to take it out of there. Ooh, it's dusty. Dusty crusty. So I installed it. I was going to get it on video, but I went to just test fit it before I started videoing. I thought the holes didn't line up for the bolts. So I kind of freaked out, and then I did it. and they ended up lining up. It was just a little tight, but I'll video putting it back together. I still have to change out that sway bar end link. Okay, I got the old sway bar end link off. Well, the new one technically. And we got this one. I'm gonna put it on here. That, just gotta tighten it down. Then we'll get this into place. All right, I've got the sway bar end link connected. Now let's get this knuckle back into place. Just about there. Tiny bit higher. Now let's get those bolts back in. All right, just gotta hammer those all the way in, and there is no bracket for the brake line here. So I don't know what I'm gonna do about that. Maybe zip tie it for now, because this isn't a permanent setup here. Okay, it is time to let it down with the wheel on and see where it's sitting. Where it's sitting now is already lower than what it normally is on the ground. So yeah, that's gonna be super low. Well, that's where it's sitting in the air. Already lower than what it was before. Okay, let's set it down and see what happens. I might not even be able to get the jack out. See if I can set something under there. Yeah, I can't get the jack out. Well then. Well, let's try that. I mean, that looks pretty awesome. There's that. Then there's that. Don't mind the squish tire from the ramp, but dang, that's low. Wonder how low to the ground this would get. Yeah, here's the other side. And here's this side. Oh yeah. All right, I've done the other side. Now I just have to put the wheel and tire back on. Take a look. There it is. Map tune coilovers on a 2007 Chevy Malibu Maxx. Let's make sure I'm not missing anything. Got the sway bar end link. Those are tightened. Yeah, now we just got to throw the wheel on. This is our old strut. Original to the car, believe it or not. The rear shocks are also original. No leaks. Although I do believe these are gas charged because it makes the air noises when you go over bumps. And here's the driver's side. Looks about the same. It looks so cool. All right, let's back it off these ramps, look at it on the ground, and then do the rear. All right, let's see if it'll make it down the ramps without hitting. It might not. Find out. barely touch. That thing looks awesome. I can't wait to get the rear done. Okay, so it just barely scraped these little things, these gripping things, right here on this. But look at that. Okay, let's measure it now. And then when we get the back done and drive it around a little, we'll measure it again and see if it changes. All right, we've got the tape measure on the ground like before. Up to the body line, 25, just under half inches. Before it was at 28. That's awesome. Let's check the other side. Okay, this side, just under 25 and a half. Perfect. Okay, now for the rear. What I decided to do for the rear, instead of using these springs, I mean, they're pretty torn up, but that's just the paint coming off. That doesn't bother me. It's the fact that they're so low and I can't use these shocks, and the other mount is stuck on this lower control arm. See? Right there. This one's off, but it'd be a pain. I'm gonna end up using those anyways and take these coilovers off, but I'm going to put those back on. Probably gonna buy new struts, just the strut part and the mount. Then I'll have those springs, and these rear ones I'll just put in now. That way I won't have to do it again. And these ones will be easier on the stock shocks than these. Look at the height difference. Well, actually, oh yeah, look at the height difference there. Well, technically, hold on. Let's look at this. They're the same height. This one is definitely stiffer than this one, but this is in way better shape, and I'm sure way less miles as well. And if we're doing that anyways, I might as well just chuck this one in. The spring rates are not going to be the same though, which might mess with the handling. But like I said, we're not keeping the coilovers in the front. Okay, let's see how much this travels when I let go of the jack. The rear has always traveled so much. It's like a whole foot, well, a whole hand. I guess you could measure it like a horse. This is the stock shock and shock mount. A lot different than the SAAB one, the mount at least. So here's underneath. Okay, here's the rear. I don't know if any of you out there have SAABs, know what they look like, but the rear control arm, lower one, I believe is exactly the same as this one from a SAAB. Well, this is for the wrong side, but whoops, wrong way. Never mind, this is the right side. Yeah, it's exactly the same. That's awesome. And what we're going to be doing is taking this bolt out and dropping the lower control arm, and then the spring will come out. Then we'll put the new spring in and call it good. Now this is the 4-link suspension system. So we've got this arm going there, this one there, lower control arm, and then one back there that makes like a swervy line shape. And this whole chassis is shared with the Malibu, the SAAB, the Pontiacs, and the Saturns, I believe, certain years. I was curious, so I undid the shock mount. And yeah, this shock is done for. It just easily goes down and stays down. That should not be that easy. Okay, so I'm gonna put the jack under here and jack it up a tiny bit so the pressure is off the spring. And we're gonna try and get this bolt out here with the giant sledgehammer. There we go. Now let's slowly lower this. There we go. Just like that. Need to get the jack underneath it. And now we'll put the bolt back in, like so. Play around with that a little bit, and then I'll get back to you when it's all bolted back up. Here's our comparison. Stock rear, lowering kit rear, coilover rear. Now the coilover rear will have a spacer at the bottom, makes it the same height as this, but there you go, there's the comparison. Here's the passenger side of the rear. Same deal. And the reason the rotors look like this with the little rust strip is because the pads I got were just so terrible. I mean, they were expensive too. They were like $50 for just the rear, and they're tiny. They're literally this big at O'Reilly's because AutoZone's came up to ones the size of the caliper, and that's it. So I just threw them in there, said it would fit, supposed to. Well, I noticed it was wearing weird, so I checked it out, and these tabs on the back were under where these little arms go. So the pad was sideways, and I went on a 1,000-mile trip and didn't know that. I thought it was fine. Well, I sanded those down so it's flat on both sides, and now I just have to wait until the pad wears down enough to get that. So it's wonderful. Just gotta love it. Out with the old, maybe. Oh geez, that one's stuck. Must be the rubber. Okay. Out with the old and in with the new. All right, rear springs are in. Time to get the wheel on and set her down. Okay, now let's lower it down and see what it looks like. A lot better than before. This side. Once we drive it a little, the springs will settle down. They gotta find their spot, then we'll be good. First drive. Definitely tight on the handling. A bump. Oh yeah, it's a little stiff. See this roundabout here? I think it definitely needs to be aligned because it was hopping around the corner. Huh. Well, here's the car. Yep. Definitely have to raise the front. I mean, I don't have to, but to match with the rear and, I don't know, drivability, I guess. But yeah, pretty cool. Definitely needs to be aligned though. Alright, I drove maybe like 2 miles. I don't want to drive a lot because the alignment's messed up. Let's measure the height now. There's a weird noise coming from the front. It's kind of like humming, like a womp womp. I'm not sure if it's just the shocks because they're probably don't have that much oil in them, or if it's the height, the CV axles are binding, or maybe the tires rubbing on something. I don't know. It's a very weird noise. I don't really like it. So that's that. Rear's good. It's a good height. Before I could fit my fist in there. Looks like it went down quite a bit. Tape measure out. I'm gonna start passenger side. Front, 25.5. Rear, 26.5. driver's rear. Same thing. Driver's front. 25.5. That CV axle is at a pretty good angle. It was basically flat stock. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. Next video will be part 2 of installing the lowering springs. We're going to convert the front back to actual lowering springs, remove the coilovers, and then go from there. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.